Hello and welcome to another episode of the Landscaper Grow Show. My name is Mark. I'm your host. Today I'm speaking with Linden Hunter, Linden Leaf Landscapes in Fort Collins. Linden, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Mark.
We just had a blast talking here before the show. So excited for this interview. I'd love to start just by hearing what services you provide for your customers there in Fort Collins.
Yeah, I do a lot of xeriscapes, taking out grass and making them into pollinator paradises. Typical formula for my xeriscapes is oftentimes, of course, remove all the grass, sometimes leave a little bit. A tasteful amount of grass is not the worst thing. And then mostly mulch is my forte. And then accents of rock. Typically, it's like a cobble stream bed. It's winding. I like a lot of curvy, artistic type things like that. And then, of course, filled with perennials. Sometimes they're more native. Sometimes they're just what people like. I try not to get people too caught up in the native aspect of it, because there's just so many beautiful perennials to choose from. And if we're removing the grass, we're automatically seriously reducing the water usage. So just filled with flowers. And I mean, I have a lot of times when I do this type of xeriscape in a front yard, and maybe it's a newer build type a neighborhood, and every single house is grass, one tree, a little rock around it, and then you see mine, and I get a lot of pride out of that.
That's fantastic. Maybe just like such a newbie question, maybe so obvious. Why is everyone moving to the Xeriscape right now?
Well, water's a huge issue, as we know. I mean, our state is on fire. We're a week into summer, and this is a huge issue. Most people don't know that our water on the Front Range actually comes mostly from the western slope. So there's water wars that happen, like a lot of our water coming through Fort Collins through the Poudre River does not belong to Fort Collins. It belongs to Kansas and people downstream. So
Really?
a lot of our water is actually pumped hundreds of miles over through the mountains to get to us, because most of the snowpack actually lands on the western slope of the Rockies in Colorado, but most of the population is on the Front Range. So
Okay.
it's a huge issue. And of course, there's the ethics of it. You want to be a responsible person in our society, but then there's also the cost of it. I've seen the cost of water rise, and it's very likely that we will get into, limitations. So, and right now they're just suggested, but they might become mandatory. So, yeah, so everyone, people have grass. Grass is, I don't hate grass. I love a tasteful amount of grass. I have grass in my house, and it's used a good bit, but it's small portions of grass. So, say, and then this is, of course, relative depending on your house, but I have maybe 300 square feet of grass in my front yard and maybe 400 or 500 in my backyard. And the rest is a surround of hardscapes and a greenhouse and a tree fort and for my kids and a lot of different things. So, but a tasteful amount of grass is good if you're using it and you want that space. There are more drought tolerant grasses like fescues and a couple of other things I've also been experimenting with, like clover as a lawn. For the longest time, people have been killing clover in their lawn because it comes into your lawn naturally sometimes, and it's a broadleaf, and so they'll kill it with a broadleaf herbicide. But literally lately, I've been ripping out people's grass and amending the soil and just planting just what we call micro clovers, which can be trained to max out at like 6 inches high if you mow them a few times, and then they're like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's an experiment that I'm working on. But first they'll grow like 10 inches high. You got to cut them down and train them to do that. But the idea is hopefully you don't really have to mow, and clover itself is a legume. So it actually harvests nitrogen from the atmosphere and puts it into the soil and therefore feeds itself. It also has flowers for bees and pollinators. You kind of got to watch out when you're walking barefoot in it. Sometimes you can get stung, you know.
Uh-huh.
But it's vibrant green, of course, too. Like it's beautiful. So yeah,
I
some
love it.
experiment with that.
So you're a professional landscaper, professional xeriscaper, right? The amount of grass that you have in your yard right now, the 300 and 500, how much do you save in water over what you have now versus that whole thing being grass, whatever it was when you moved there or whatever? It's like what percentage? I mean, is it you save 5%, you save 30? Is
Oh, it'd probably
how much
be
you have in
more
there?
than that. I mean, it was never all grass for me. Like I bought the house, I bought a lemon from a weirdo who had a bunch of crazy stuff going on. So it's never been all grass.
Well, just to say xeriscape versus grass, have you
Yeah.
seen do you have I'm just curious what this is.
Yeah, no, I don't
How much
have
people
the
could save?
exact statistics on that. I mean, usually when we water grass, we're watering like maybe half an inch of water, and that's like half an inch on everything, maybe twice a week. And that's a significant amount of water versus one perennial, depending, would typically get about maybe half to three quarters of a gallon of water per week, but it can taper off as that gets more established. And then there are things like mulch that help retain that moisture around that perennial. So the water does significantly go down, I would say at least in half, but I don't have the exact statistics as to what that is.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
We had chatted a little bit, and you had just mentioned something that I kind of love this direction, man. So landscaping is art. You had said that part of how you kind of like look at this, the work that you do, also kind of a unique way you're showing up in the market. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about like landscaping as art out in your community.
Yeah, it's really important to me. I mean, I have a lot of pride in being a working artist. I made it, mom. I'm a working artist. I'm out here. You like, I'm out here getting to be creative. I do pretty simple designs right now. I don't love computers, so I don't do computer designs. I do hand-drawn designs. But, some people have another design that I'm working with, but oftentimes I'm making my own designs. And so, we go through phases of the design and then the implementation. And I love working in front yards because it's most visible, but it is really exciting, and the pride that comes from making something beautiful and having the elements come together and it being something that people can enjoy in a physical realm and really brings them outside. That's, for we have these spaces, both inside and outside of our homes. And probably most people spend a lot of their time inside. I personally spend a lot of time outside, and that's not just because I work outside. Even when I'm at my house, I'm mostly outside, just being outside. And I think Coloradans in general really appreciate outdoor spaces. And that's part of why I feel like there's a lot of demand for our services, my services, my, comrades, my, the people who are supposedly competition, but really we're all just kind of on the same team. I have a number of landscaper friends, and we go back and forth and talk about it, and it doesn't really feel like competition, because we're all just creating beautiful spaces for people to enjoy outside of their home. And the joy of growing a plant. I mean, the joy of having a garden. It's, there's a reason we pay, like, you don't save money very much when you grow a garden, right? Like it's kind of a lot
Right.
of time and
It's a
money and
labor of
stuff.
love, right?
Yeah, it's a labor of love. It's like the joy of, oh, pick this cucumber and,
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. So, but people in Colorado love it because people in Colorado love being outside. And just one of the things I love about Colorado, I grew up here, I've been here my whole life. It's a certain type of philosophy around that I think keeps people here and entices other people to come here. And it's important to me.
Man, love it. We talked about something that you do a lot of. I'd love to hear more about. I've done way back in the day a fair amount of stone work. Always loved it. Had some great teachers around that. Man, I just love that kind of work. And especially you've got kind of a unique style. Tell me about the stonework you're doing up there.
Yeah, I do a lot of stonework, and that's actually how I got started. My dad taught me how to lay stone patios and stone walkways and stone walls. He was born in 1953, so he is 73 now, and he's still doing it. He's slower and he takes a couple naps, but he's still doing
That's
it.
great. No way.
So sometimes he comes down and helps me, and of course he has his style and I have my style, and so I gotta tell him to do it my way. But yeah, like I do have kind of a particular style, and I have taught a number of people who have worked for me through the years how to do it in my style. And it takes a second for people to learn how to lay rocks. First they'll be really slow, which is fine because they're learning. But even years later, like, I mean, I'll be laying with my guy now, which I usually just mostly let him do it, and I'm running around getting things and doing that kind of managerial stuff. But I'll start laying with him and I'll be twice as fast. And
Sure enough.
it's a thing. I mean, it's a formula that works for us, and it's a art. It's really like I explain it as like the puzzle that always comes together. So you get this pallet of rocks. Typically, I get a pallet is 2 tons of rock of flagstones from the quarry, and I'll drive that over the mountain, over past Horsetooth Rock and around Horsetooth Reservoir and back into town. It's about half an hour out of town, and either I'll unload it with my machine. I have a mini skid steer, which is amazing. And so I'll just load up the bucket and then dump those buckets where I want. And then we got to lay it all out so we can see all the different shapes and colors and thicknesses. And sometimes they have a little shelf, like each rock has a better side and a worse side, depending on some factors. And so you have to take these piles and open them up, spread them out so you can see your shapes. Then you're looking at the shape of your path patio, however, and you're mostly looking at, angles. I'm looking like, is this a little bit of an obtuse angle? Is this a little bit of an acute angle? It's basically a right angle. And then you want to keep it free flowing where you only have to match. The easiest is to match one angle, right? But maybe you have to match 2 angles, and then it gets exponentially harder as you go, as there's more angles.
But key in this is the chisel, right?
The chisel, yes. The
It's
chisel
maybe a
is
critical piece because fitting this always together, right? You're talking about other people that do this masonry or using like saws, but you're really committed to this chisel, and so inevitably there's going to be a fair amount of shaping that has to happen to make this work. Or like, are you using mortar, whatever? How does it work to, like, if you're not using chisels on every stone, right? I'm just kind of curious about how it all fits together at that level.
Yeah, so like if you don't have to chisel, don't, right? So a lot of guys who do flagstone work, they'll get their joints super tight. And that's a whole lot of work. And I don't do that. I go anywhere from nothing basically up to 2 inches. And so it's not exactly perfect, and it's more natural in that
Sure.
sense. Like, these guys who cut every single edge of a rock, number one, you get a lot of waste of the product that you then you're losing product, and you have to get rid of it at the dump, or likely the dump. That's a whole factor. So I try to avoid that. Number two, the dust is extremely toxic to your lungs.
Oh,
So, and it's also dusty and messy at your job site. So there's a number of reasons I do it the way I do it. But yes, we do of course use a chisel, and that's a whole thing that you got to learn. You work your
yeah,
line.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
you kind of
sure.
draw the line, and then you hit the line and you work the line back and forth, and sometimes it breaks in a way that you don't want, and then it's like, shoot, either grab a
Jeez.
different rock and try again, or just keep going. So
And there are a fair amount of walls that you're doing just in general using, I mean, like a cement, like maybe even a recessed joint sort of cement, back behind there, or are these like dry stack?
Yeah, so I do two versions of walls right now. Both of them are with strip stone, which comes from the quarry. And the simplest version is just stacking that strip stone up and gluing it to each other with a construction adhesive. It's not the
Oh,
best. It's the cheaper version, of course, and I don't like to go more than like a foot high on that.
construction adhesive, really?
Yeah, just a construction adhesive, just like they glue down floors with, and
God,
it's for
amazing.
bricks and things like that. You
Okay.
just got to make sure that the surface of the rock is really clean, because if there's dust, then
Mm.
it's not going to adhesive well, right? But I don't. I what the nicer version I do is actually a cinder block wall. 8 by 8 by 16 inch cinder blocks, and you mortar them all together, and then you mortar the strip stones along to the front of it with mortar only in the back. So I'm just mortaring the backs of them to the cinder block wall, and that makes the wall about a foot wide, thick, right? And then so it looks like a dry stack from the front. And then on the top, I just put capstones. I usually don't even do the dimensionally cut flagstones because they're actually a lot more expensive. And it's much more artistic when it looks, various shapes on the top of it. But I mortar those capstones onto it, and then I put mortar in between those joints. So the only mortar you can really see is mostly just the top of the wall between the joints of the capstones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Love it. Well, fantastic. Well, Linden, it's just great to hear what you guys are up to. Just a sec. I can just tell. I can really feel the heart and the soul of what you're
Thanks.
doing, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talked about even some other things we didn't totally get to at this time, but just love your, company philosophy about, just doing really, really high quality work and, maybe not even necessarily wanting to grow at this point all huge because you don't want to lose touch with that quality of work you're doing. Love it. Love it.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important to me. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, well, fantastic, my man. If folks are in Fort Collins and looking for a great, landscape project and also, some hardscaping help, a company to work with, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
There's a contact form on my website, lindenleaflandscapes.com. You can also call me. I never mind a phone call. As long as it doesn't show up as spam, I'll probably answer it. And
Great.
then, those are the two main ways. Of course, my email is on my website, and my Google page is a key factor of my business. I have 77 5-star reviews that I'm really, really proud of.
I saw that.
Yeah, that really, that's heart and soul. Like, I if everyone who has had me work at their house has reviewed me, it would be 1,000, but
Yeah,
I got
right.
77.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
you know so that's part of the joy, is like my art is all over this town, and I'm really proud of that.
Man, that's fantastic. Great, Linden. Yeah, so you can take a look at Linden's work over at Linden, Linden, lindenleaflandscapes.com. He's got a beautiful website, beautiful photos of his work. There's the phone number right there. You can find that and get in touch. Great, Linden. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, man, and sharing all your experience and some great stories.
Great, thank you, Mark. Appreciate the time. Thanks for reaching out.